this secondary button, which will do things and stuff of a nature.
Nothing can stop this button except the same button to stop the stream.
Yeah. So let's just do our usual checks and or balances.
Yep, yep.
Let's see here. Nope, that's not it. Oh, that's I always forget. I'm always on like Facebook looking for the stream, like where is it? And then I realize, 20-second delay. It's just,
Yeah, there's always that delay.
my brain always goes to like the worst. There it is.
Yep, yep.
All right, we.
Yeah, there's always that delay.
You're
You're here though.
always goes to like the worst. Yes.
Buongiorno, Steve. Hello.
Yes, and the echo has been fixed before any of you mention it.
Where's Doug? Doug will Doug will be the person that that does that.
Points that out.
Yes, every time. Or there's usually Doug or Anthony. Those are the two.
Yeah.
So we're here. We're gonna have a fun time. We're gonna talk cars and fun stuff. And we got some more blind rankings for you guys tonight, which is always fun because they always just never end up the way they're supposed to, which is great.
Which is exactly their point.
Yes, but we have some fun topics to cover. Lots of news out there right now. Some pretty heavy stuff. Some pretty heavy stuff from the EPA on many different fronts.
Everybody's favorite topic, the EPA.
Yeah, the EPA. Well, I mean, it directly affects us because car enthusiasm. But yeah, we got some stuff to talk about that. And probably some general other car news. But yeah. Anything new since the meetup, Steve asks? And no, not really. We've just been kind of chilling, going back to work, doing our own normal thing. If you guys missed it and weren't able to join, our supporter group, Shift Squad, as well as a couple other select few, were invited to do a fun weekend with us. We didn't go crazy anywhere really a lot, but we were supposed to do a drag strip sort of run on Friday. Unfortunately, that didn't work out only because the drag strip was not open, and usually they are. But no harm, no foul. We'll do another one probably in the spring when the weather warms up again around here. And then on Saturday we did a really nice drive with a bunch of supporters. That was a lot of fun. And we went to Hot Dog Johnny's here in New Jersey, which is a very old and very cool establishment that what's the term? Do they boil it in peanut oil? They cook it in peanut oil? Whatever they do, they make the hot dogs in peanut oil, and they're ridiculously delicious. It's like an old school style way of making them.
They're fried in peanut oil.
They're fried in peanut oil, yeah. But they're heavily delicious and heavily caloric, and they were wonderful. And yes, Steve got his Steve got his keys locked in his car. So glad you replaced the batteries, my friend.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, it was a great time. It was a really, really good time. And we had the wonderful, magnificent Elliot Alvis with us as well. He was in town for shooting something for his channel and another company that he was working with. And he rented a C8 Corvette, which is a great car. And we did some back road driving. The best of which, unfortunately, you missed, Chad, because you went to drop Lou off, and then we randomly found some epic twisties, and we're like, damn, this is the best roads we've driven all day. But we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that again in the spring because it was a lot of fun, and we're gonna do it the way we wanted to. Drag strip on Friday and different roads on Saturday, which will be a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, I mean.
Good evening, Doug, and good evening, Anthony.
Good evening. I don't know why chat's looking weird tonight.
Good evening.
But it is the way of things at the moment. Yeah, no idea. He's gonna stop fiddling with it before it breaks. Yeah, no, I mean it was good to meet up with everyone. Like, excuse me, like Greg said, there. well, during it, it was we're definitely going to do more of these. We're
Yes.
probably going to revisit in the new year and start trying to plan things out.
Yeah. So if you want to be a part of these, please head to our Facebook page and go to Shift Squad. It is specifically Shift Squad, not Shift Posting. That is our public group where there's like 30,000 people. 30,000 plus people. No, sorry, there's a mosquito like right around me here in the garage. I'm trying to get rid of. No, Shift Squad is our paid supporter group, and you will be the first one to know about things like this. It will also help support the stream and the channel. So if you guys want to support us, that's the place to go. If you also want to be part of these drives, then that is also the place to go. So go there, and just hang out. We have a great community of a couple people, and we're growing it. So it's going to be a lot of fun coming into 2025. With that said, Chad, your car sounds fantastic. I followed it a lot on the drive, and I was not unhappy about that. It was a glorious noise.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds good. It definitely has the coyote rasp to it, but
Oh yeah.
but yeah, I can't give too much away because, frankly, how do I phrase this? Yes, it's going to sound arguably better with the direction we're going with the build this time. And that's
This time, keywords.
no, I mean, I'm going to Blue Sky this Friday, and we're going to be discussing some things. And then from there, I'm hoping to get the vlog series started in like 3 to 4 weeks. So we'll just say start in November, the vlog series. And then we can start really talking about the new car and the plan for the build with that. I'm actually pretty excited. It's going to be a pretty nice little competition / challenge with any of the cars Greg decides to go with. Right out of the bet, right out of the words, English, first language.
That sounded like a very British term. Hey, right out of the bet. That means I just need to get a V8 Bentley.
Yeah, right. But no, it's going to be interesting. It's going to fulfill some of the things I have wanted to do with a couple of with builds going as far back as the Lexus. To anyone who paid attention to that, you'll kind of have an idea of what might have an idea.
Ooh, me. I've paid attention since Alexis. I'm here.
Yeah, to be fair, none of these people knew I existed. Well, let me back that up. When I was doing the Lexus, they knew of you, but they didn't really know of me.
Yes, because it was mostly Volvo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anthony brings up a good point. Anthony, DM me that link to that again, because I want to see where that's at. But there's a very nicely done 240 wagon with a 2J swap that's manual that Greg should really just buy.
It's nice. It's nice. Although I checked it yesterday, and it was already up over 20 grand with 6 days left. I think it was like 21.6 with 6 days left, and I'm just like, yeah, that's going for over $35,000.
Well, so now you know.
It's not just like a 240 with like a 2J slapped in. It's like it's well done. It's a nice build. It really is. Yeah, we'll throw it up in a second once we get the link going. But engine talk is going to be one of our first blind reactions tonight. So stay tuned for like 5 minutes from now because we're going to do a blind ranking
of engines.
And I want to go first.
Oh, you want to go first? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because I'm always worried, and I don't know why, but I'm always worried when we start doing these blind rankings that like we're gonna do the same topic one of these days.
I mean, we could, but here's the thing: we're two totally different people that like very similar yet different things. So even if it was literally like rank these 5 4-cylinder engines. we probably will come up with 8 to 10 different engines, knowing us.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not really that concerned about it, quite honestly.
So this is the 240 we were talking about. I mean, number one, the paint looks immaculate.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, primo color, so good.
Uh,
Love this color on the
I love how
240s. It's just
everything
fantastic.
with this build is subtle, right? Like it doesn't look like, for lack of a better way of
Yes.
putting it, JDM'd out, right? It's got wheels that you would see on a 240, paint, body stuffed at it. I mean, it does have Recaros.
Yeah.
It does have a digital gauge cluster, which I think is freaking awesome. And the star of the show, a very mild, and I do mean mild, 2J.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, it's built for security, not 1,000 wheel horsepower burnouts for through fifth gear.
I mean, it's half of that, which is still a
I
lot.
know.
But that means
It is.
But that means a more responsive throttle, all that other sort of stuff.
Yes.
And frankly, in an old Volvo chassis,
Yeah, here's the thing. This car and this power are bananas because Chad, how much do you think Volvo 240s weigh?
2,400 pounds.
I mean, no. But I thought you were going to say something like 3,500 pounds
Right.
because the connotation with Volvos is that all of them are heavy because the connotation with Volvos is they're tanks.
Misconception.
Not true. Yeah, very big misconception. The one behind me, yes, very heavy car, but it's also a 2016. It's a modern Volvo, and there's a lot of stuff. A lot of modern cars are very heavy. I mean, Chad's Mustang in EcoBoost form, or not even EcoBoost form, the four-cylinder form is
That's
like
the
3,500 pounds. Is it? Wait, oh no,
There's the EcoBoost 4-cylinder, and then everything else is V8, as the good Lord intended.
yeah, no, I'm talking when it came out because it had the four banger, it had the V6, but the V6 wasn't the EcoBoost at that point in time, was it?
No, the V6, it was an NA V6 that was like a lump.
That was it, right? So it was the EcoBoost 4, the lump V6, and then the V8. So, but what I mean by that is the four-cylinder when the Mustangs came out were still 3,500 pounds for a Mustang. The V8s were like 3,800 pounds. But these things are like 2,900, 3,000 pounds with the white block in them. Or sorry, with the red block in them. So with the 2J and all that other stuff, you're looking at maybe 3,000, 3,100 pounds max. With the interior, properly sorted, it's probably that. That's not a lot of weight for 500 horsepower. This thing is going to scream.
No, I mean, not for nothing.
And if you-
As someone who's owned a Mustang V8 with 500 horsepower at one point,
Yes,
that's a lot. It's a ton of fun.
it's a lot.
And here's the thing. With this car, you could push that 700 horsepower boundary, not all that expensively. I mean, they did do cams.
Yeah.
So here's the sort of the build. You have a Borg Warner S366 turbocharger, a tubular manifold, which is amazing that it fit under the engine, which is awesome. It has cams. It doesn't specify the cams, which I'm guessing they're Brian Crower stage 2 or stage 3, as one does with these. But here's where
Yeah.
it gets good. A Motec M130 ECU. Motec's very good ECU. Very good ECUs. Mil-spec engine wiring harness, short version is that is a almost race car spec. Not quite race car, but just below it. Wiring harness. IDX 1050 fuel injectors. All you need to know about that is those are the same exact injectors that my Mustang had. I guess technically still has. They're mildly crispy at this point. Not bad. They can be refurbished. Radium, fuel rail, Bosch throttle body, Spall fans. Like, they did a really, really good job with this build. And it's going to be a $35,000 thing, which is Greg's budget, and he should totally do it. You might be muted there, Cheech.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Clearing my throat. I forgot to unmute. What's the price at now?
22.
I can't see it. 22. Okay. I mean, look, that's not bad. But there's still 5 days left, so it going up for sure.
Right. No, it's just
If this thing goes for under 30, I'd be surprised.
No, it's oh, fucker.
Yeah, this is well done. And remember, if you remember that viral video that 1320 did about the Volvo with the eBay turbo on it. I think the guy called it like Motherfucker Jones. just the best name ever because he just hucked a turbo LS in there, and it had I think only 600 horsepower, but it was just stomping on everything, and it doesn't matter if it's a turbo, whatever. 600 horsepower, 600 horsepower, and it was just destroying because it was like a sedan or a coupe, forget which, and man, it just rocketed because there was nothing to it. It was like a 2,700 pound, 2,600 pound stripper that basically everything was gutted. It had one seat in it and it had a turbo LS in it with a cage. I mean, just like, of course it's going to beat everything. There's nothing to it. It's an engine with a chassis. That's it.
I'm curious as to why two wastegates. I'm trying to find a better picture of it.
It's for more whoosh push. More blow offs.
So you get in stereo.
Yes. This it goes all the way down, both sides.
It's like any time a bird flies in a Disney movie is the sound effect you just made.
Yeah.
No, but this is a really
at any rate, this is a cool build.
This is a really cool build. Frankly, I'm a little ashamed Greg didn't think of this when it came time for his 240s. But
I mean, I would have liked to, but the thing is, like this build is like if you're gonna do this not on your own, this is a $50,000 build plus, maybe 60. The car is nothing, but everything else, it's the fabrication of it, like getting everything in there. Yes, there are kits, but like there's still a lot to it.
And it's a Chevy.
I mean, the LS kits. Yeah, I mean, like getting an LS into a 240 from a reputable shop that sort of knows what they're doing. And again, you're not doing the work in your garage or your driveway or what have you. It's going to cost between $20,000 and $25,000 to get it running and driving normally. That's with the engine, any fab you'd need, transmission, any adapter kits that you would need. Not that you should, but whatever, if you needed it. Mounts, rust repair, like, and I mean, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. And something like this, like 2Js, you can still find them for relatively cheap, but they're not as cheap as they used to be. And I mean, you don't see a lot of 2J Volvo builds either. So this is sort of a very unique one in that sense. Mostly if you're swapping something in here, it's going to be a Ford or a Chevy block of some kind, and it's going to be a V8. Those are most of the swaps. Of course, there's other like, Swedish swaps that you do, like they have an inline sort of the Swedish 2J, the white block from the 900 series back in the late 90s.
2J. I love that. Like it's a Swedish 2J. I mean, try not to push it over 400 horsepower, please.
No, different white block. There was a straight 6 white block. That's the one I'm talking about. Oh, okay.
I know there was. No, I know they had a 3-liter straight 6. Great. I'm not. Yeah. I haven't forgotten that.
No, I didn't. I didn't know if you meant. I didn't know if you were thinking of the 2.5. Just
No, but it's. We're straying here.
Yeah.
These.
Either way, this is cool.
It's a stock.
Anthony 2J Swede. That's good. Like that.
I just want to point out before we really move on. Look at how many pictures there are of this thing.
Yeah, good. That's how you should sell a car. You should have hundreds of pictures. Like
300
this
is
is
a
the
lot.
300 is a lot, sure. But I mean, I if I'm buying a car, I would appreciate that. And I would say that most of the people on Bring a Trailer are going to be enthusiasts, and they probably appreciate that as well. But anyway,
There's the price.
that's a very cool thing. Go check it out.
63,780, we'll call it $3. Was the
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. 50K, maybe more. Like I said, I'm not surprised. It's a good build. Um, but with that said, I think we should move on to our first topic of this evening, which is blind rankings.
Dun dun
I'm
dun.
recentering myself. So, Chadson,
Greg.
I have a blind ranking list for you.
Yay.
And for those that don't know, blind ranking list, we'll do our little spiel for the reel in a second. Blind rankings is when I give Chad, or Chad gives me, a list of 5 things. And we're giving the other person the things in a random order. And we have to blindly rank them 1 to 5. And if we get them in the order that we think we should, then we win. I don't think either of us have really won yet. Like outright.
I don't think there's.
But I think like we've come close once or twice.
I don't think necessarily there is a winning and losing to this, as much as there is a.
Oh, there is.
Um,
Oh, there is.
I mean, if we're doing it by that, then Greg loses. But no, it's just one of those things where it's fun because you don't know what's coming, and it's like you wait for that gotcha moment.
Yes.
Like
exactly.
the Chappelle, like gotcha, bitch.
Yeah. Gotcha, bitch. That's the best. Okay, so, Chad,
Greg,
I have a list for you to blindly rank for me. Are you ready?
as ready as I'll ever be.
Outstanding.
Son of the Greg.
Stop yawning and let's go. Blindly rank these modern yet legendary V8 engines.
Interesting. There's only one, but continue.
I will preface this with there are no surprises. These are all bangers.
Banger after banger.
So, banger after banger. Darude Sandstorm plays in the background.
Where are we at? South Carolina.
Your first engine, the LS7.
2.
Ooh, interesting.
Here's the thing.
Why 2?
Because I look, the LS7 is my favorite of all of the LSs, like all of them. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number 1, it's 427 cubic inches of America. Go F yourself, Europe. Like when the LS7 came out, it was directly developed with the race engine, the 7-liter race engine they were using in the C5 and C6R race cars that were literally responsible for killing a class because they were so good. These engines are, and as the old adage goes, there's no replacement for displacement. When you're searching NA horsepower, that is 100% the thing. Because you can get these things 650, almost 700 horsepower, NA with chop. They fit in everything. And again, 427 cubic inches. There's just something about that that's a little bit better than 350, 383, 416, whatever you want to, like, whatever displacement you want to go with. Because in America, we grew up when an engine size started with a 4, you were talking about a big block back in the day. And some of the most legendary engines of yesteryear, 426 Hemis, 427 big block from Chevy, the 429 Camry from Ford, even Ford's big blocks and all this. All of those were right around that 420 something. And then here GM comes along and says, hey, here's a small block with that displacement. And with the proper exhaust, they sound incredible.
Yeah. I mean, good reasons. I can't argue with any of them. The next one is the LS3, the LS1, the LS4. No, it's
Rank
just
the
LSs, but I
LS.
set it up.
I'll take the 4.8
Yeah.
junkyard special, please.
It's literally just I set it up with modern yet legendary engine, and it's just a list of LSs to screw with you because you have a Coyote and no LS in your life. That would be a great twist. However, like I said, there is no twist here. All right, next up. Speaking of Europe, because you said go after yourself Europe, a engine that I know you love because it's in one of your favorite European cars of all time, the Audi Sport FSI. For those that don't know, that's the 4.2 liter V8 that is in the RS4, the R8, what have you. Because I know you like this engine a lot, which is why I put it on the list.
Couple of things. Quick fourth wall break. No, it isn't, Steve. It may be lighter, but not as much as you think. And we could go down a rabbit hole of aluminum block versus steel block versus what you want for making big horsepower. But at any rate, the Audi 4.2. Yeah. I am a big fan of that engine. It sounds great. It's in a lot of cool stuff. The RS4, despite all of its like roll of the dice with its reliability, Audi electrics, all that other sort of stuff. I'm trying to think of like engines you might throw into the mix and things like that because
there's a lot of good V8s out there. Modern good ones too.
Well, no. Right now in my head, I'm playing the game of does Greg know what the good Hemi is? Does Greg know the Gen 3 Hemi, like as opposed to the 1 and the 2s and stuff like that? Or is he just going to throw like Hellcat at me? So
I don't know, man. Maybe it's on the list. Maybe it's not.
You know, I'm just going to try to look at this as far as like, would I... It's funny you bring up this engine because I was just looking at an R8 V8 like yesterday.
Mm-hmm. They're getting cheaper, a lot cheaper.
You know, in the 60s now, and like.
Well, I've seen him in the mid 50s.
You know,
actually,
and I think that would be an
insanely
epic.
tempting.
I think that would be an epic build to build that motor, have it make more horsepower than whatever the best V10 is for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that.
For Lamber Audi.
I don't know. I think I have to give myself some wiggle room. It's not even when you said modern V8s. Just wasn't even in my thought process. So even though I do like it, the Audi 4.2, I'm gonna put it at 4. I like the engine. I think it sounds incredible. It's in a lot of cool stuff. There's just V8s I like better. And I would, and that I'm gonna roll the dice and just assume that at least one of them is on the list, and go from there.
All right. So what's the ranking?
4.
4. Okay, 4. Very interesting. Very interesting. Wrong answer, but very interesting.
Listen, you love AJ V8, so like, what do you know?
I mean, what's wrong with AJ V8s? They all sound wonderful, and they're good engines.
I mean, ish. Let me put it to you this way.
Speaking of
the AJ supercharged, 550, 600-ish horsepower in an F-Type R. The Coyote supercharged, I think the most wild one in the GTD makes 815 horsepower. Even other than that, it makes 780. Your move, tea drinker.
Yeah, you got me there. So we started in America with the LS7. We hopped to Germany for the next one. Let's head to Japan for the third one. The Toyota UZ FE family, specifically the 1UZ.
I thought you might have gone 2UR with this one, but
nope.
Look,
I was thinking about it, but no. I wanted to get 1UZ because I know it's a very versatile engine, and I know we talk about that one more than any other.
Right. Mostly because like the UZ family of V8s are quickly becoming sort of that Japanese junkyard LS. In
Mm-hmm.
that they're an older engine. Chances are your best bet is finding a 2UZ because the LX 460 or the GX 460, whatever the Lexus SUV is, was
Mm-hmm.
the longest holdout with the UZ family of engines. Um,
Yeah, I think it was the
I
LS.
love these engines. I don't think from a technical standpoint it's better than um an LS. I don't think it's better than the Audi V8 you mentioned. I don't think they're old engines. They're really old.
Mm-hmm.
They are technically flawed in some spots. Um, in that they had designed it the way. So they designed that with making the smallest overhead cam V8 they could with a given capacity, i.e., displacement. So they only have one cam gear, but it has a scissor gear that spins both cams, and it comes out very narrow. So you have a very narrow overhead cam engine design, as opposed to say a Coyote where it's that wide, right? These are about half
Yeah.
as wide. The downside is you end up with acute angles as you get into uh, intake runners in the head going to the combustion chamber, exhaust exit, and stuff. Air doesn't like making sharp movements. You get turbulent air.
Mm-hmm.
Turbulent air doesn't necessarily make the best bang. That's why a lot of your modern supercars have some variation of a system, whether it be ITBs, secondary throttle plates, like the Porsche 911 RS, or even, say, the Coyote, that manipulates air speed and pressure as it goes into the combustion chamber. It's an engine that came in the 90s, let's face it. That said,
Yeah.
all of that can be fixed. They do sell ported and polished heads for these things. They still sell cams. There's still a really good aftermarket for these things. They fit in a lot of they fit in a lot of places. They're for an overhead cam V8. Their profile is very small. So, and it's an engine that it's always been on my brain, and that's why I'm gonna put it at 3 because it's
Okay.
always been on my head. One of my favorite episodes, um, one of my favorite episodes of the old show Rides was when Chip Foose designed and oh gosh, the Millens built an IS430, which was with the 3UZ, but because I had an IS300, they put the V8 in it. They had a manual gearbox behind it. It was really cool at the time. It was making more power, a little bit more power than the current M3 of the day. Um, it's always been an engine I've loved, and if I could go back in time, or in the future, one of the builds I really want to do is a 1UZ swapped IS300, with some variation of boost, just because I like that. I love that beat. We talked about the 2J earlier. I like that V8 way more than I do the 2J. Just I don't know. It's
Yeah.
not in this part of the world. It's not often thought about. So I'll put it at 3. Like I said, it's a
Interesting.
favorite of mine from for a long time.
Cool. All right. So we have LS7 at 2, Toyota 1UZ at 3, and the Audi 4.2 liter V8 at 4. Next up, we're going back to Europe
6.
because this one is probably the most interesting. No, because this one is the most interesting on the list, at least as far as I'm concerned, based on your opinion, because this is arguably the best modern V8 to come out of Europe, in my opinion. And it is the Ferrari
5.
F136, which you can find in the F430 and
Actually,
458,
hold on.
which is a reliable engine, and the last naturally aspirated Ferrari V8 ever.
Yes, and the Maserati variant of this engine sounds better, in my opinion.
Yes, but it's still a 136. It's just
Here's the thing:
manipulated by
historically,
Maserati.
that's an engine that will go down in history, right? 458s
Oh
and
yeah, that's why
10
that's why it's on the list.
458s and in 10, 20 years, those are going to be the Ferraris that people are really looking after. It's, you know, the V12 Ferraris will always be a thing, and they'll always kind of be. But that last naturally aspirated flat plane V8, it's an incredible technical achievement, and I kind of put myself in a hole here because I got a feeling whatever I decide, one is going to be an engine I don't like. Not that because I'll put it to you this way. That's all well and good, but I like a lot of these other engines because they do a lot of what the Ferrari engine can do. Mm-hmm. But they're not Ferrari. Number one, modern Ferrari, their cars are a technical marvels from an enthusiast, from a man, I want one perspective. They're incredibly mid. And then you combine that with the fact that even when you could get a 458, Ferrari is notoriously difficult to deal with as an enthusiast. It's like, we have designed the car, that's the way you will keep it. If you do anything, we reserve the right to blacklist you or whatever. Which,
sure, we're talking about the engine. I'm not talking about Ferrari or the car. We're talking about the engine
right,
itself. That's
but I'm
it.
getting to this is getting to my point, right? That Ferrari attitude always just Ferrari. Like, let me put it to you this way, right? Technically speaking, it's arguably going to be the most technologically advanced engine on this list. And it's how old? You know, flat plane crank, massive red line, big power, naturally aspirated, you know, like all of those things. But the Ferrari brand, it just does so much nothing for me right now that it's really hard for me. I don't know. Here's the thing. I know you probably have like some fucking French V8 waiting to go in number one, and I'm gonna be
no. There are no surprises on this list. I told you, and I promise you, this is not a weird list. This is just really good V8 modern engines.
That being said, I'm gonna tell you from a swap perspective. Say I have one of your 240s, and I'm thinking about a V8 to put into it, right? Admittedly, for views and clicks, as Ryan Trueck showed with the the GT4586 or whatever it's called.
Yes, I love that. That's the best car and a great name.
You know, from a content perspective, the Ferrari engine would probably get the most clicks.
Oh yeah.
But if it's just off camera, I would put any one of those other engines, because they're more interesting to me and because they come from brands that I just don't dislike as much as Ferrari. So I'm going to have to put it at 5.
Okay. All right. Well, that leads us to our last one. And I'll go through a couple of, which might not make the reel, but I will go through a couple of, oh God, my brain isn't braining.
Honorable mentions.
What is the thing? Honorable mentions. Thank you. Yes, honorable mentions. Thank you for actually thinking, because I'm way too tired to think at this point. So, honorable mentions. The AJ133, of course. The Jaguar F-Type. The F-Type V8. Is it I think it's the 133, right? Or is it the 136?
The fuck if I know.
I forget. I don't know. Either way, the AJ V8 in the F-Type. 5-liter V8, great engine. The Hellcat Hemi. Not on the list. And the S65 BMW V8, a great modern V8, not the most reliable, but a very good modern V8 because it's it's the only V8 to ever be slapped in an M3 because BMW said, why not?
No,
rod bearings be damned.
No,
we didn't learn anything from the E40.
No, it isn't.
Screw it.
No, it isn't. We've been over this. BMW put a V8 in M3s. Took them racing, sold just enough to homologate the car. Thus, not the only V8, as you were.
I could have also picked the S62, which is the one from the E39 M5, also a legendary modern
The
V8.
other V8 BMW put in an M3.
Not an M3. That was not it. Oh, was that the one that they did for the homologation special E46?
The M3 GTR came with whatever the M5's V8 of the time. The
Gotcha.
E39.
Still doesn't count. Not a production
Yeah.
model. The end.
BMW produced it in numbers more than,
How many did they make exactly?
30?
Yeah, that's not enough for a production car. Sorry.
It was a
Not
production.
on this list. Don't bring it up. We're in the middle of a list. Stop it. But anyway,
Okay,
you did this list. You did this list correctly because the last one on my list was the Coyote.
boom, winning.
Boom, number one. So why is it at number one? Well, because one, you own one.
No,
and
I will
two,
take.
You'd probably put it at the top of
Okay.
the list if I started with that anyway.
So, here's the thing. Thank you for doing that. There's no letting me have it, Steve. BMW actually made these homologation special cars so they could take the vehicle racing in the American Le Mans series. It's a thing. It happened. Just like McLaren made X amount of F1s to take. Well, they made way more than they needed to, but they did it so they could take it.
Yeah, there's several
racing,
hundred of those.
right? It's a thing. It's there. If you look it up, it has a BMW VIN tag with that engine code. It's a thing. At any rate, back to the Coyote. So I'm going to try to take the fact that I own a Coyote. I mean, bias is going to creep in just because it's in my car. I've done arguably more research on, or more recent research on this than I have any of the other engines on this list. I did do a fair amount on the 2J and the 1UZ. And ironically more on the Maserati variant of the Ferrari V8, the crossplane one, which, fun fact, created more sexual arousal in both men and women than the Ferrari V8. Fun little factoid for you to share at the water cooler to unsuspecting victims at your workplace.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and not share that with anybody.
You should. It's great. Here's why. The Coyote, if you look across the board, until the Corvette flat plane V8s came along, it was the most technologically advanced American V8 pretty much ever. And then again, like I said, those flat plane crank Corvette V8s, which they're effectively a picture the scene from Super Troopers. The engineers are looking at a picture of the Ferrari engine you mentioned. It's like enhance. Oh, just put the engine in the goddamn Corvette already. But here's an argument for the what? Number one, the head design on the Coyotes is incredible. You could take. I mean, you could push 1,000 horsepower. I think all you have to do is pistons. I think that's all pistons. I mean, you probably do pistons, rods, crank, but even then, I think the crank and conrods can handle over 1,000 wheel. Right. Number two, they rev, and they love revs. You can get the engine in my car to rev close to 8,200 RPM with some head work. And we're not talking complete redesign. We're talking springs, retainers, the right cam, etc. And it just is like, yep, I'll have that. They are over-engineered in very similar ways to the way the Japanese legends were back in the 90s and 80s. You know, like 2Js and all that. And so where double the horsepower, it's like, yeah, I'm cool. I'm great with that. And here's the biggest thing. I would love, there's no other engine right now in top level drag racing. I'm talking to keep it simple, your Pro Mods and your Pro Street and like your Pro 28s, like those classes all got kind of convoluted and stuff like that. But we're talking over 2,000 horsepower, some cases over 3,000 horsepower. That you can go to Ford and order the block. You can order the heads from Ford. If you're not going to push over 2,500 horsepower, you can order a crankshaft that was in a Coyote in a production Mustang.
Yep.
The Boss 302 version of the Coyote, in case anyone was wondering. Now you're doing rods, pistons.
Nerd.
I mean, the whole point of it is that the engine is so over-engineered and can handle so much horsepower where it's hard not to sit here and say that it's one of the all-time great engines ever. You know, I would argue that I'm not going to argue. I will say flat out, and this is a little bit of a risk on the internet. It's at number one, and as a stock thing, sure, it may not be as good as, say, you know, the Ferrari engine from a technical standpoint. But if you want to mod it and make big horsepower, none of these other engines, you're going to be none of these other engines are going to take to, say, boost as well. The LS, you're going to be doing heads. You're going to be doing valve springs, the whole nine. If you want to get over 1,000, probably a sleeve it, crank, that whole nine. You know, the 1UZ, that is a seriously, you know, everything needs, basically the block is going to be touched, but that's going to be factory steel or aluminum, I guess, in this case. You know, the Audi engine, same thing. Ferrari engine, I just don't think you could take stock parts as far with these other engines. Again, I have a Mustang.
No, I don't think you're wrong.
I have a Mustang, so there is an element of bias in here. Like I said, if you want naturally aspirated horsepower, that LS7 is going to make more than the Coyote will. It just will, because cubic inches and all the, we'll just say science. You know, you have more place to put air and fuel, which means a bigger bang.
True.
You know, so, but the five, I think the Coyote is the best engine. You can get it to rev damn near close to what are those Ferraris rev to? Over 9?
It's 9 flat.
You know, we can get within shouting distance of that. Not crazy close, but we can get
in the 8s.
You know, with the Coyote, which,
yep.
And not for nothing, in race spec, these guys are spinning them up to 10,000 RPM. Just gonna put that out there.
True.
Now, again,
so for the real, I would like you to have an ending shot of this. By the way, just go, good list, because that'll be.
Like, I mean, not for nothing. If you had just given me these 5 as an option, this is exactly how I'd rank them. So
yeah, I wouldn't rank him the same way, just because I agree the Coyote is very good, but I don't think the Coyote has reached sort of like crazy legendary status yet. I think it's well on its way, and I think, but when it's all said and done, I think a lot of people are going to consider the Coyote as the greatest American V8 ever made. You know, and that's like 50, 100 years from now when they're talking about like, oh, I remember the heyday of V8s. Like, I feel like the Coyote is going to be in the conversation for top 3 or 2, or even it's just outright 1 from everybody. However, right now, if I have to rank them, I would probably put the Ferrari one up top, just because of the way it sounds, what it represents from a last hurrah sort of scenario, if you will. I'd put Ferrari at 1, I'd put the LS7 at 2, and I'd put Coyote at 3.
That's because Ford sticks to their guns and saying, no, we are going to continue to make these engines, while even the likes of Ferrari are capitulating and be like,
oh, I know. And I mean, Ferrari, I think mostly, I don't think Ferrari did any of the turbo stuff to basically comply. I think the complying of, you know, emissions and EPA, or not EPA, but like emissions and under the guise of like MPGs and stuff. I mean, let's be honest here. Ferrari slapped turbos on their cars to go faster. That's what they did. They didn't slap turbos on their car for emissions and or MPG scenarios. Like, go look at a 488 and be like, oh yeah, that thing's economical.
No, I'd rather not.
Nobody says that.
I'd rather not.
Nobody says that. SF90, yeah. That 200 mile an hour 0 to 60 in under 3 second Ferrari with V8 and turbos on it. Yeah, that's totally the reason.
Yeah, but the volumetric efficiency of those engines means that when you're off boost, they're going to get pretty goddamn decent mileage. Just saying.
True, yes, but I'm also just saying, like, it's not the reason they put those on the car. Like, they said, oh yeah, we're putting turbos on to make it more efficient. Like, no, you didn't. We know it. We know why you did it. Stop. You're you're pulling the wool over
Well,
zero
that
enthusiast
brings me
eyes with
back
that.
to a point that we've talked about before, maybe not in detail or what have you, but it's these. We'll call it the Porsche 911 class of car, right? Um, like all of these things are getting just way too powerful to have any sort of
Oh
noticeable
yeah,
like fun in them. Like, look at how much
yeah.
look at how much power the like. So the not that's why like the 911 GT3 RS is such a perfect, fun sports car. It's ridiculously
Yeah.
fast, but it gets speed in other areas other than just having a metric crap ton of horsepower. They make 500 or a little over it. They look good. They sound good. I mean, I was
Hmm.
thinking about engine swaps um, for like a hypothetical build with a whatever car. And I was thinking about it. I was like, I would love to mimic that sound to such the degree that I went up and I looked at like the bore stroke and everything of the 4 liter in the RS
Yeah.
and the firing order. And I'm like, I wonder if you could do that in say like a VQ, right? Just use the holes in the block to hold these things. Have the Porsche firing order, the same bore, the same stroke. I don't know if you could necessarily do the same bore and stroke, but you can get roughly the same displacement. So I was like, I wonder if that could sound similar to the RS motor. I understand that exhaust manifolding V6 versus
Hmm.
flat six, all of that, but like to the point that I love that engine and the power it makes. It's natural, like it's such a perfect thing.
I bet you could come, and I know this is the same, layout, H6, but I bet you could take Subaru's H6 and come pretty damn close if you like built one. I bet you
Right, and
could come
those are very
close.
strong motors. The whole reason I went with the
They are.
V was I was trying to make this fit in a small car. Like in my head, I was
Mm,
going through engine.
right,
I
right.
was going through engine ideas for the God. I hope someday it actually happens. 510 build because I think about that build once a quarter, and like seriously think about it. It's like I know what the body's gonna look like. I know
Yeah.
I'd love to put a Roadster shop chassis underneath it just so you could do things like have 350 Nissan 350 or 370Z suspension setup so I could go to and buy coilovers for a 370Z and they fit or brakes or whatever like all that like to that's the level of nerding out on this that I went down. um
Yeah. So, good list. I'd say in your eyes you won. I would say in my eyes you didn't lose because your list is good. But I'm curious what list you made for me because I've been I wanted to go first with this one because V8s and we love V8s and you own one. Hopefully I'll own one soon. But I'm really curious as to what you conjured up for me this time.
so Gregson, I have come up with a list that I want you to blindly rank, and I want you to know before we get into it, this whole list was inspired by the whole Kyle Larson Max Verstappen debate that's been floating around the internet. How Kyle Larson thinks he's a better
Oh
driver
God.
than Max, and because he's done more in different types of vehicles, etc. But it got me.
Kyle Larson at 10.
Um, I should show you. I need to show you a clip of some of these sprint car guys because they're absolutely insane. But that's not
Mm.
what we're doing here. Um, Greg, you're going to. So, Greg, for this list, you're going to be blindly ranking drivers based on your perceived no, basically how you perceive their overall talent, right? If we were to sit here and take them,
Whoa.
if we were to take these drivers and put them all in an equal car that has a bit of downforce but isn't an open wheeler, has a bit of horsepower that but isn't like making 9 quadrillion horsepower.
Mm.
Who do you
So IROC.
basically IROC or Race of Champions, that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
But I never liked those. Just getting off topic a little bit. I never liked those because well, the Race of Champions, the one they do over in Europe, they have like these little go-karts and small little like nothing hatchbacks, which I think an element of this to try to figure out who really is the best driver is you have to have an element of higher end race car. Like honestly, if you were to throw all of these guys into a current GTP car from IMSA and let them have at it, give them proper testing time, etc., and let them have at it, because the say F1 drivers will have less downforce than they're used to. The NASCAR guys will have a little more than they're used to, and everything kind of in between. But Greg, you're going to blindly rank these drivers based on how you believe their overall skill set is, and we're going to start with a doozy. We're going to start with a good one.
Oh no.
Dale Earnhardt Sr.
Dale Earnhardt Sr.?
7-time NASCAR champion.
Oh, man.
Back when the cars really were road cars that you were driving at over 200 miles an hour. Into the modern era that we have now. Also finished second overall in a GT car at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Or not, I'm sorry. Also finished second in a GT car at the 24 Hours of Daytona.
Yeah. This is a very difficult list because it's 5 slots for every race car driver ever.
Yes.
And there's so many interesting choices.
But think of it as rank their overall skill if we were to put them. But like you have a gut reaction.
But
you
still,
you obviously have a bias against NASCAR drivers.
No, I don't. I know NASCAR drivers are not unskilled at driving. If you've ever been in a NASCAR and you try to fathom the speed they go left on banked turns with 35 other cars around them within a tenth of a second of them crossing a certain point in the track, it is an insanely hard thing to do. And I've been in a NASCAR at nowhere near 200 miles an hour, maybe 150, and I'm just like, nope, I cannot do this. And I guarantee you everyone on the internet that's saying NASCAR drivers are terrible drivers cannot do it either. So you're dumb.
That being said, 5.
That being said, 12. No.
Oh, you're going to have the South rise again, buddy.
Though. But I have to play the game too because it's only 5 slots, which sucks.
Yeah. So he's in the top 5.
Oh man, I don't think Dale Earnhardt Sr. is a good driver at all. But no, I'm gonna put him at 4, just because I don't think it's gonna be 5, but I also don't want to put him super high up either. Dale Earnhardt Sr. is arguably the greatest NASCAR driver that's ever lived. There's a couple others you can make an argument for. In the echelon of NASCAR, there's about 5 guys. Earnhardt Sr.'s in that conversation. So, and I know he's driven other things very well, and he could hop into any car he wanted to and drive the absolute piss out of it and be good at it. There's a skill set there, obviously, but I got to put him at 4 to play the game to give myself a little headroom. That's just where I'm putting him. I'm putting him at 4, and people are, please don't, Dale, do it for Dale. Please don't come for me. Sorry, Cletus. And you're muted now. How did that happen?
Accidentally hit the lock button on my keyboard. Turns out that brings you to the lock screen. Hopefully the stream didn't go down.
Oh, no.
So we have...
Nope, I have it still on my phone. You're good.
So we have Greg has, arguably, to many, the greatest NASCAR driver who has ever lived at 4.
Yes, but he's still in my top 5.
Every one of these drivers are going to be in your top 5.
Shh, details.
But your second option, and this one is really interesting.
Watch them all be NASCAR drivers. I will hate you so much. Don't There's definitely another one on the list.
No. They're not known for being a NASCAR driver, but I know for a fact 4 of the 5 have driven a NASCAR.
Ooh, okay. That makes it interesting. Okay. Okay, go.
The next driver on my list for you to rank is Juan Pablo Montoya. Indy Kart champion, two-time Indy 500 champion, wins at the Rolex 24 at Daytona overall in a prototype, 7 wins in Formula One, and 2 wins in NASCAR.
That's, I mean, a very good all-around driver. And I will say those 7 wins in Formula One came during the Schumacher era, Michael Schumacher era.
Well,
which
also
is
the Ralph Schumacher
no
era.
small feat. That's not the Schumacher we're talking about. Ralph, very good driver in his
We're just
own right.
not talking
Michael,
about the Mick Schumacher
totally
era.
different plateau. Totally different echelon. Not even close. Ralph, love you, buddy, but sorry, not even close to your brother.
Hey, better skier.
I mean, oh God, that's
too dark,
brutal,
too dark.
But you're not wrong. Man, that is such unfortunate and unnecessary shade. Oh my God. Okay. Well, I figured after I made the comment of like they're all going to be NASCAR drivers, and you said my mind instantly went to Juan Pablo, just because he was known for coming over from F1 and IndyCar, and like everyone was going to be like, he's going to dominate NASCAR, and then didn't at all, which just shows that like these disciplines are very different. Like you can't just come from Formula One and be like, yeah, I'm going to hop in a NASCAR and just dominate everything. Like that's not real. Like you have to work at it. That being said, like you can't argue with IndyCar champion, Indy 500 champion, Rolex 24 champion. Like that's an impressive resume. Mm-hmm. That's a very question, and I don't know if you know this off the top of your head. Did he win in Monaco? Did he get the Triple Crown? Did he get Monaco, Indy, and
no, he never.
Le Mans, not Daytona.
He may have raced. I forget if he actually. I don't think he raced at Le Mans, but
okay,
I'm pretty sure he actually. I'm pretty sure he won at.
Yeah. Either way, it doesn't matter because I don't think he won at Le Mans, but Daytona, Indy, and if he did win at Monaco, that's like a baby Triple Crown. That's still not bad.
Yeah, he won in Monaco in 2003.
Okay. All right. Well, look, I mean, Le Mans is a different beast, but 24-hour race is a 24-hour race. I mean,
he won the Great Value Triple Crown.
Yes, he won the Walmart Triple Crown. Again, playing the game. I don't know. I'll put JP at 3 above Dale because I don't think he's a better NASCAR driver than Dale by any stretch of the imagination, but his resume is just better.
So you heard it here first. Juan Pablo Montoya, better driver than Dale Earnhardt Sr.
I like how you're trying to tee me up for the NASCAR community to
just
come
after me. Yes.
Yeah. I hate you so much right now.
This one's interesting. It's very much in the same vein, just slightly older era. We are going to talk about the one, the only, arguably the greatest American driver who has ever lived. That is one Mario Andretti.
Yeah, that's one.
Here's his resume, as Greg puts him at 1, and we'll quickly realize why.
Sorry, you give the resume, but he's staying at 1.
Right. Well, this resume is not going to deter you. It's like, oh, he only won one Indy 500. Fuck him.
Yeah, I know.
But Mario Andretti has 1 Indy 500 win, 52 wins in a combination of USAC and kart, i.e., IndyCar racing before the split.
Yep.
4 championships there. Won the 1978 Formula One World Drivers' Championship. Has 12 career Formula One wins. 1 win in the Daytona 500. And he finished second. His best finish at Le Mans was 2nd overall and 1 win in his class, in addition to other sports car races won around them. I mean, I don't know if there's a better resume ever.
I would agree. I don't think that there's a better driver ever. There's arguments to be made that, Fangio could get into anything and drive it and be good at it. There is literally nothing on the planet that has ever been made in cardom that Mario Andretti could not get into and not be good at driving that. He is the prototype for driving. Period. End of story. It has nothing to do with him being American. It has everything with him being legitimately the best driver ever. He has wins in everything, literally everything. Formula One, IndyCar, back when it was not IndyCar, NASCAR, sports car racing, like just name anything. The guy's gotten in it and won in it. Like it is legitimately the best resume, but also like he's just the best driver, period, of racing ever. I mean, I can't think of anyone on Earth that's ever lived during the car that would be anything other than number one on this list. Honestly, I really don't.
Well, good news. You didn't screw that one up.
I was hoping he would be on it just to be like, yeah, he's like the first round draft pick, number one overall for all of car drafts.
So
the end.
Off topic, you would put him ahead of like Senna, Schumacher.
I would. Senna's my all-time favorite F1 driver, but there's also like there's not enough sample size for other drivers to be able to, for me personally, to put them over Andretti.
Right.
Like, I know Andretti raced in Formula One. I know it's a different era, obviously, but a championship is a championship no matter what era it is in. You're still racing against other people in the car of that time.
In the Niki Lauda era,
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, he won a championship, like you said, in the Niki Lauda era, but like, a championship is a championship in every series, period.
When you would beat the best of the best at a given discipline, I don't care what it is, there is a level of that is impressive.
Yes.
If you whether it be NASCAR, Formula One, World Rally, sports car racing, you are dealing with highly specialized individuals. Yeah. And no, I always put Andretti up there for a lot of the same reasons you said, but for me, for a driver, that versatility trumps individual motorsport dominance, right? Like being able to get into other things and win is huge.
Yeah, I agree. It's like saying, oh well, if Schumacher won 20 straight F1 championship, he's the greatest driver of all time. But he also tried out NASCAR and failed, and also tried out IndyCar and failed, and also tried out, sprint cars and failed. It's like, well, then he's not the greatest driver of all time because he failed at everything else he's been in. That didn't happen, but that would be my argument there. Like, he's the best Formula One driver of all time, clearly. 20 championships. Oh, well, duh. But, like, everything else he failed in, so he can't be the best driver of all time. He didn't win in anything else. Mario won in everything. There is zero argument against him, like, being number one. He literally won in everything he drove. The end. It's the end of the argument.
Yep. Well said. Well put. Congratulations on finally not being wrong.
Yay, we agree on something.
The next one I wanted to throw in here. And I was thinking about trying to pick, like, from each major discipline. But then I was, like, thinking about it, and it's like, the modern era, when people think of great drivers, they're thinking of your, Formula One, your NASCAR, like we've spoken about. But one of the people they always talk about as being one of the greatest drivers, and we can get into whether or not it's warranted or not, but I thought it'd be interesting to get your take on where he fits among these others, is Ken Block.
I mean, I love Ken Block. Rest in peace, by the way. I think he is. I think he is a interesting figure in motorsport because he wasn't particularly a great driver in the sense of what we're talking about here of like, oh, what's the resume,
He
right?
won in
This
Global
list is
Rally
sort of
Cross. He won in
no,
Rally
I know.
America, and rally
Yeah, no,
drivers
he
are
has.
often, when people start talking about who makes up the best.
Yeah,
Like the first version of this list is I was going to give you a discipline of racing, and you would rank them.
mm-hmm.
That may be in next week's
Okay,
show or January's show. I haven't decided yet.
cool.
Uh,
Well, even if it's next week, I won't remember it, so it's fine.
um,
Whenever.
you know, and everybody has this sense of if they don't say Formula One, a lot of people gravitate to World Rally drivers just because of like the sheer girth and mass and size of their man parts for doing what they do at the
I would.
speeds they do on the woods and wherever they drive.
I thought you were going to put Sebastian Loeb in here for that
No,
particular reason
there won't be
because
French on my list.
no, I understand. But
No,
again,
we'll get
credit
to
where
the
credit's
we'll
due.
get to
He's
the
arguably the best rally driver ever, arguably. But that's why I thought
Frenchman
he
in a
was going to be
French
on this
car.
list. When we
Did you honestly think that would go touch that with a 10-foot pole?
no, of course not.
I
However,
would
I
make a
was
list
thinking
of
it could be a
1,000.
possibility because it's a list for me as opposed to for
No, but
you.
I came up with it. I could do a list of
I
I would
know.
come up with 1,000 drivers before a Frenchman made it. That's why Alain Prost ain't on this list either. Also, he was a
Well, I
monumental
mean,
and colossal douche. But
correct. And he was also basically filleting Jean Todt when he was in Formula One and won 3 out of his 4 championships because of the FIA. So, he will not make any of my best driver lists ever due to the politics he
well, the
played.
next driver up, no,
Um,
never gonna happen.
yeah, no. One of my lists these days are just going to be French cars or French drivers or something just to piss you off. Either way.
You're gonna need a lot of
But
AI to make me answer that list.
yeah, yeah.
All sixes.
It's the reel is just going to be like, oh, so what do you think about what do you think about Citroen? 4, Renault 3. It's just monotone.
No, it's
just
you're gonna be like, so you're gonna lead in, you're gonna describe them, why you think they should be there, blah blah blah, and I'm just going
you're
to
just
cut.
gonna leave.
No, it's just gonna cut to the Chappelle clip of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 every time.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is the best. Ken Block is an interesting one because he doesn't have the same resume of the people we're talking about. But he is a obviously very good driver because if you weren't a good driver, you wouldn't have been able to do the things he has done in rally, nor would he have been able to make arguably the most important modern car series of videos to bring cardom into the next generation because a lot of people credit Fast and Furious with being sort of that nexus point of like bringing more people into car enthusiasm for like the 2000s whatever. I would argue that Gymkhana was even more important in that sense because it is more raw. It is showcasing actual driving to do those stunts. And I know those stunts were not done in one take. Some were, some weren't. I get that. You still have to be an insanely good driver to do some of those things, regardless. You were going to make a point, though. Go. What was your point before I give my ranking?
Thank you for doing that. I'm gonna go pee.
Okay, you go for that first, and then we'll finish the list. Um, I'll keep talking about Ken Block because I think we have what we do, guys. So if you're watching the stream, what we do with some of these is we cut them down and make them into reels because they're just cool lists to make into like short form content. But I mean, look. Ken Block is, I would dare say my favorite modern rally driver, just because I was very ingrained into like what he was doing was watching every Gymkhana. Man, when I saw the San Francisco Gymkhana, I forget which one it was. It was like 5 or 6. When that came out, I was hooked, and I just was like, I can't believe someone can do this with a car. This is insane. It's so cool. I love this. I watched all of them. I watched everyone after that. Now it's the torch has been passed to like Travis, and like it's just cool. But like, man, the legacy, like he left, and his daughter picking it up too, like Leah picking it up and doing more stuff with Hoonigan. Like that's insane and really really cool. So like for me, like he's a really interesting figure, and he's a really cool figure. Now that Chad's back for the real and for finishing the list, I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, but when you put Ken Block up against Dale Earnhardt Sr., Juan Pablo Montoya, and Mario Andretti with the 2 slots still open, I sort of have to put him at 5 because as good a driver as he is, he's not on the same plane as the other 3. And I got to keep the 2 spot open for some sort of wild card. Chad's gonna like be like, and the last person is Gregson Mate, and I'll be like, well, shit. No, like I got to put Ken at 5 just because of like who's on the list already, and I got to keep the 2 slot open for somebody. That's the only reason.
Interesting take. I like how I can, rile the internet's jimmies with this one. The last one is, and by default, going in the 2 spots. So your second best driver of all time is Nikita Mazepin.
Oh,
I'm fucking with you. I'm totally fucking with you.
Oh god. Oh, thank sweet baby. I'm gonna go Ricky. I'm gonna go Talladega Nights. It's like sweet, thank tiny infant baby newborn Jesus Christ. Not Nikita Mazepin. Oh my god, he wouldn't even be on the list. There would be what's the highest number that anyone's ever not counted? That would be where he is.
There's worse F1 drivers. If you're not familiar with the Josh Revel YouTube channel, he does some really good series on those.
What's the guy? Taki. He's the guy that ran over a Marshall, like in like the 80s or 90s.
Oh, there's a lot of them because like the pay to play was so much worse back in the day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The one guy I'm thinking of. Taki Inui.
Yeah.
He is by a considerable margin the worst F1 driver that was actually in the series and like actually raced. As opposed to like these random people.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. I forget the guy's.
My God,
what's his name? I gotta look this up. It's funny because Anthony in chat goes, "Why is it? What about the Stig?" And it's like, yes, but also number one.
But we know who the Stig is now.
Well, we know who both Stigs were. The first Stig was Perry McCarthy, failed F1 driver. Famed for
right, and then Ben Collins,
Ben Collins did GT racing, had sort of a decent career, but nothing really. I mean, not for nothing. If he was on this list, just based on merit, he would be 5. Just,
I mean, yes,
it's
great driver, knows how to drive whatever, but like.
That just goes to show
the same resume
if you can be a professional racing driver and even one that's had mixed success or mixed levels of success.
Yeah,
that goes to show just the level and how insanely good these drivers are. But no, we'll go through this again. I apologize.
Not Nikita Mazepin.
No, because. Just to recap, we have Mario Andretti at 1. This next driver at 2. Juan Pablo Montoya at 3. Dale Earnhardt Sr. at 4. And Ken Block at 5. So your number 2 driver on this list is Patrick Dempsey.
Patrick Dempsey. McDreamy? God damn it.
And I promise this is the last one. I'm still fucking with you.
Oh, come on, man. That one was actually
I
serious.
know I'm good, right?
God, oh, that's
No,
brutal.
in all honesty, I
Also,
think you.
I would have been like, no, no, he's number one in my heart. Let's go, McDreamy number one. Fuck Mario.
I mean, to the ladies in the audience, he's probably number one. Um,
I
Not that they
know.
know.
Yeah, all one of them, possibly Mrs. Steve, also known as Abigail. Now that I've actually met her.
No, but
No.
again, recapping the list, we have Ken Block at 5, Dale Earnhardt Sr. at 4, Juan Pablo Montoya at 3, the next driver at 2, and Mario Andretti at 1. So your number 2 driver, according to the 5 drivers that I came up with, is, and you're actually going to enjoy this, Greg, Lewis Hamilton.
Oh, yes, I think I absolutely nailed this one. Hell yeah.
You did do a very good job. I think
I'd probably if I had to redo it, I'd probably flip JP and Dale Earnhardt Sr. But I'm very okay with this list.
I don't hate it.
I mean, Lewis at 2. There's an argument for him to be number 1. I think he's also the kind of guy that could kind of get into anything and drive the piss out of it. But he ain't Mario.
No, and he hasn't. He drove a NASCAR at Watkins Glen for, let's just face it, a PR thing, which was very entertaining.
Yeah.
But no, I think you did a very good job with this list. I'm just looking over it. You could make an argument here and there, but I think overall this is pretty solid. And you did a good job. I just want to go through some of the honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list. Colin McRae.
Yes. Who are you? I was gonna say. I was like, all right. So if you put Ken Block on there, what other rally drivers were you thinking of? Because I knew there were others you were thinking of.
Colin McRae was the first one that popped into my head, and then I was like, you know what? I think I honestly put Ken Block in there because I thought it would be more interesting.
I would agree.
Just because
Colin McRae, great driver.
He doesn't have the on-track
KB
success, but he has the commercial success, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say by leaps and bounds over, I'd say almost any other driver. KB is a worldwide known person.
I would argue
because of the commercialism of the commercialization of like what
I would
he's done.
argue you could walk into more corners of this planet, and they will know Ken Block before they know Juan Pablo Montoya.
100% yes.
Or even any of the other guys on the list, just because of the
true.
But another one on this list, driver who's done sports car, IndyCar, but is most well known for NASCAR, Jimmy Johnson.
Also an insanely good driver in his own right.
And then another one who has championships in multiple, we'll call them top flight series, the flying mustache himself, Nigel Mansell.
Nigel, yeah. I mean, look, Mansell, very good driver. But he had the car to beat a lot of people and didn't in Formula One.
Right, but he is the only man to win a Formula One World Championship and an IndyCar Championship back to back.
That's true. That is very true. And that is no small feat because it was done in the 90s when kart or champ cars were far more wild than they are now. So it is that is insane. That is an insanely impressive feat. Formula One being its own thing, but being able to hop into a completely that, granted, it's open wheel, sure, but a completely different set of rules and regulations.
Ovals.
And to win it, ovals, right? Ovals. I mean, Formula One doesn't race on ovals. To be able to do that and just know speed, like Nigel Mansell knows speed, like that is a wild thing to think about happening now.
Yeah.
Like think of Lewis Hamilton going into IndyCar right now. I would wager that he wouldn't win. He may win a couple races.
Yeah, I think the F1
would dominate. Like Mansell dominated.
Right, but there's a couple of things. Number
series.
one, the Indy car of the day was closer and more similar to the F1 car of the day than the Indy car of today compared to the F1 car of today.
That's true. They were both a lot more raw.
Right. And honestly, you could look at an Indy car and an F1 car side by side and be like, an argument could be made that they raced against each other. Mm-hmm. They actually, here's a funny story about that whole Mansell thing. Eccleston wanted Mansell back in the worst possible way.
Yeah, he did.
To such an extent that Bernie Eccleston wanted to do what the hell? I forget exactly what it was, but it was basically he was going to take all F1 and put it up against Indy on any track they wanted and have a race. Just so there was no confusion. And then the last honorable mention I had, just because I think these guys, much to the same point we made about Ben Collins and the Stag being able to drive, if it has four wheels, they can drive it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to put this name out here, and chat, I want you to pay attention. How many of you guys know this name? Because I don't think a lot of you do. I could be wrong. Tom Christensen.
Ooh. That is a good one.
You know, I
put Tommy Kendall in that echelon too.
Kendall didn't have anywhere near, all due respect to Kendall.
No,
didn't
but he
have
could
the
get into
success.
anything and drive it.
Right, but to those of you who may not know, Christensen just so happens to be the man who has the most overall wins ever at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Could you say that's outdated?
Which is quite the record, by the way.
You know, arguably the most prestigious race, full stop.
Ever, yeah.
And then lastly, before I just got to step aside for a real quick second again, I'm sorry. I just wanted to touch on Anthony's comment of, since we're on a NASCAR kick, what about Richard Petty? You don't earn the King as your nickname for no reason. I mean, yes.
Also an insanely good driver.
Obviously, I wanted to try and pull from as many different disciplines as I could, while also keeping one eye on the, I don't know how the best way to describe this is, but like, what I wanted I wanted the names to be modern and recognizable, you know, hence Lewis Hamilton and not Juan Manuel Fangio or Jim Clark or Michael Schumacher.
Right.
Ken Block, I just thought was very interesting because, again, not on track success, although he did have his fair share, more than a lot of people. But he showcased a skill set that nobody else was. You know, Mario Andretti, literally him, AJ Foyt, that era, they drove everything. Everything. You know, AJ Foyt famously won Le Mans in a GT40. So, like, you have that. And then, obviously, NASCAR, when most people think NASCAR, as good as Petty was, and an argument could be made, you know, between him, Earnhardt, and Johnson, you could argue one of them is the greatest of all time. Just because they did things differently. You know, I'll give you the quick rundown on that. Petty and his team were geniuses building a car. Dale Earnhardt was a phenomenal, and all three of these are phenomenal drivers. Earnhardt was a phenomenal driver who was going to do whatever it took to win. And Jimmy Johnson won 7 championships over, I think, 3 different championship formats. So regardless, an argument could be made that Jimmy Johnson's success is the reason we have a playoff in NASCAR. That's not necessarily a good thing, but he was so dominant. They're like, how do we make him less dominant? And he still won championships. Like,
right. It's like the same argument for like Steph Curry in the NBA right now. It's just like, well, the NBA is very 3 happy. Like, well, who did that? Steph Curry literally changed the NBA. Jimmy Johnson was that same person for NASCAR. Like, they literally changed NASCAR rules around how dominant Jimmy Johnson was.
You know,
yeah.
so
like I mean, if we're making a NASCAR list, it's like, well, yeah, of course we're going to talk about Richard Petty. It's like, well, who's your top five in NASCAR lore? It's like, well, Richard Petty, Dale Sr., Jimmy Johnson are the first three that come to mind. Jeff Gordon can arguably be in that argument. Four championships, very dominant driver, arguably one of the overall best NASCAR drivers. Period. And then, I mean, in the fifth slot, you could put a whole number of different people. Uh, David Pearson, Bobby Allison, Cale Yarborough, Tony Stewart. Like you could put like almost a dozen different people in the five slot. But like if you're talking about like a top five for NASCAR, Petty's got to be in the conversation, if not that number one.
I mean,
The importance of
Earnhardt
him.
Johnson, and Petty are three of the four Mount Rushmore, and that's not even a debate.
Oh, 100%.
And then you could talk about your Jeff Gordons, your Yarboroughs, you go down the list and kind of like
yeah,
nitpick and there, but those three
yeah,
are without question. But
100%. They have to be the top three you talk about.
you know, but and I see you, Andrew. Don't worry about it, man. It's all good. It happens. Greg
Hey, Andrew, what's up, man?
is going to be, I mean, just wildly entertaining for the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Um, well, that goes against my whole ethos of being lazy and not knowing anything. All right. Well, since we're talking about it, let's talk about NASCAR and the top five and immediately lose all of our viewers. Why not? No, I'm just kidding. I mean, but that's kind of like why we really like doing these lists, because it's the whole blind ranking part of it that's the most fun, because you don't know what's coming next. So we're gonna keep doing these, here and there, because they're fun. They make good reels too. They make good short form content, and you like conversation around them is just a lot of fun. So for Andrew, since you joined again, welcome. Good to see you, buddy. We did two different lists of blind rankings. So I had my list of modern um, rank these modern legendary V8s from 1 to 5 without knowing what's coming next. And on my list, just to recap, I had the Ford Coyote 5.0, the LS7, the Audi Sport FSI, which is also known as the 4.2, which was in the RS4, the Audi R8, what have you, the Ferrari F136, which was in the F430, and the 458 Italia, and then also the Toyota 1UZ FE, which was just a I think it's 1UZ FE. Chad, correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but the 1UZ. All modern, legendary, really good V8s. So that was mine. And then Chad ranked for me, or gave me the rankings of these race car drivers, ranked them in order. And I believe it was Mario Andretti, Lewis Hamilton, Dale Earnhardt Sr., Juan Pablo Montoya, and Ken Block, which is a very eclectic list. But I think I nailed that one. So if you want, Andrew, you can rewind and watch it, or you can watch the reel that's coming out in a couple of days on it. With that said, I think that we should talk maybe next about, and I'll tee this up for while Chad's sort of going around. We should talk about some stuff that is not necessarily heavy, but is sort of killing enthusiasm a little bit in a way. And it has to do with emissions. It has to do with what's going on with the government. And I know politics is just the best topic, but this is not a which side are you on as far as political party is concerned. It's more of a regulations discussion, because what we're talking about now, and I made one reel on it yesterday, that I'm going to make another reel on it tomorrow, or short form content, however you want to talk about it, is the EPA is really coming down on a lot of these shops that are selling and knowingly selling and installing defeat devices. Now, what that means is if you have a check engine light due to a tune on your car or a part on your car that's throwing the check engine light, for example, a downpipe that is has a different catalytic converter on it, if it has, a tune on it to make more horsepower, but also is telling the computers that it has the same emissions when it really doesn't. That sort of scenario. That is what the EPA is sort of cracking down on. Most highly, it is diesels, because diesels are known to be very dirty. We have the whole rolling coal community, and we have diesels kind of just talking about, well, we have diesel shops talking about defeat devices. And what that means is they are compliant based on those cars going to get inspections and smog testing and what have you. When in reality, they are not compliant at all with any of what they should be checking for at any point in the car's life. So these defeat devices, basically you plug it into the car, or it's a tune on the existing CPU, or it's a new CPU, or whatever it is that the shop sells, or whatever you're putting on your car, that basically fools the it fools the inspection stations into thinking that your car is compliant when it actually isn't. So one of the latest ones is Rudy's Performance Parts down in North Carolina. They were knowingly selling defeat devices for diesel trucks and diesel cars and what have you, mostly diesel trucks. And they were fined $10 million by the EPA. $2.4 million on one thing, $600,000 for something back in April, with a 3-month probationary period. And then again in July for a consent decree for $7 million. So add that all up and it's over, and add that all up and I think it's over, I think they rounded down, but it's over $10 million. So it's just over $10 million, which is pretty crazy. So $10 million for a smaller shop, no matter how much they're making money-wise, is still a significant amount of money. The next one, which I'm going to make a reel on tomorrow, is Cobb Tuning, which everyone knows from the Subaru community. They sell those little devices that are about this big. You can plug them right into your Subaru, and you get tunes on your car. Cobb, it's called the access port. And basically, you plug it in, and people just kind of like mount them to their dash. You plug it in, and you have any number of tunes you can put on if you want. I know in the VW community, there's a similar thing. And I want to say Cobb Tuning actually does VWs, but I forget. But there are certain things that you can basically plug into your car and remap things. Basically saying like, oh, tune 1 is close to OEM, it gives you a little bit more. Tune 7 is like full whack. You can do like crazy stuff. It's a lot of fun, and it gives you a lot more power, blah, 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 blah. And everything in the middle is like, tune it how you want, but there's different maps you can put on. So the EPA just fined Cobb Tuning $2.9 million, basically saying that they knowingly sold these access ports and other devices, mostly the access ports, with emissions defeat technology, to say, oh, you're making more power, but you're manipulating the emissions, and you were untrustworthy and not forthcoming with how these work. So that is the biggest thing for the Cobb Tuning stuff. It is disconcerting to see, one, that the EPA is coming down so hard on these shops, but two, knowing that these shops are willfully going against the Clean Air Act, which I'm not necessarily saying that the Clean Air Act is the be all end all of get that off of the screen. The Clean Air Act is not the be all end all of how we should govern ourselves as far as emissions are concerned. The biggest thing I'm saying here is that, like, these shops know full well, because this has not been happening for like 6 months. This has been happening for like 3 or 4 years now. These shops are still selling this stuff and not complying. And I'm not saying complying in the sense of like, oh, we should adhere to what the EPA is saying, but like, there are so many ways that you can go around this. Why not just do that? Chad, your thoughts on the whole topic as I now step away. Why are you not speaking?
Honestly, I think this is all complete and utter bullshit. All of it. All of it. All of it. Just um it's how do I put this? If somebody sells something and that in turn makes your car illegal or out of compliance or what have you, is one thing. The other thing is, and this goes back to the shoving the electric car down our throats as mandated by the government. And that is, we were not a country founded upon having the government overreach, especially on a federal level. You know, we famously threw a bunch of tea into the Boston Harbor because of quote unquote government overreach. It's one of those things, right? Like, not to oversimplify, but if you're speeding in your car, it's technically illegal. It is something you know is illegal, and you take that risk as a driver, or we'll call it for the rest of this, the private consumer. I cannot stand this. I think number one, there's an industry built upon this stuff, right? And we're talking about people's jobs. Granted, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge number of people, but it is not on the same vein, it is not an insignificant amount of people, right? So that's number one. Number two, look, on the one side of this, you have, say, the diesel defeat devices. And look, you can say everything you want that, you know, whether it be my car, Greg's car, anyone's of our cars who have modified. But when, you know, you start having this rolling coal stuff, that's where I draw the line, right? Like, you're spewing black smoke. That is clearly not even close, right? But you can still modify, add power, tune your cars. Because again, the aftermarket is a massive. And there's a lot of companies and stuff, and they're just basic. And what the government is effectively coming out and telling you, the EPA is coming out and telling you, with this sort of stuff is that they don't care. They're hiding behind this notion, and Anthony put it best in chat. You know, they're making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, have private jets, have, you know, if every single one of these really truly did actually care or give two fucks about the environment, they would be driving the lowest emissions, most sustainable, most car they could. When in actuality, most of them probably have some form of big-ass luxury vehicle, big-ass SUV, all of this sort of stuff. Stuff that, let's just face it, goes well with the country club measuring contest. So it is, in my mind, a lot of this just goes, dance puppets. It's like, vote for me because I'm the environment's friend. When really they just want a job where they work, 180 days out of the year? If that. It's a good paycheck and a hell of a pension and all this other sort of stuff. And at the end of the day, in my opinion, it comes down to one simple fact. It is on the consumer. It is on the shop to make all of this known. It's saying, hey, you know, it's why if you go on any aftermarket site, almost every single part that is designed to make your car go faster or make more power or what have you. There's something that it just says this is 49 state legal. It's not CARB compliant or off-road use. At the end of the day, it's, put it to you this way. They still sell cigarettes. We know how dangerous cigarettes are. I still smoke, right? As many of you know, right? But they put the little warning on it, and that's that. To sit here, number one, if you're tuning correctly, the emissions difference isn't that different on an individual car. The percentage of emissions and stuff isn't a great. We are not going to save the planet by simply doing that.
Correct.
So the tuner needs to be better, but on the same token, that's capitalism. And what I mean by that is Cobb is huge in the Subaru world, the GTR world. Hell, Cobb does a lot in the Ford world, whether it be the Focus RS, ST, or even the EcoBoost Mustangs. They are a big name. However, we've seen big names fall because they got lazy, they didn't offer a product that was as good, and they didn't change their pricing to correspond with the quality, or they raised prices, basically because, hey, we're a name brand. So while the EPA can get effed, it's also on Cobb, on the community, to be better. And let the consumer, at the end of the day, will dictate. And if Cobb starts getting a reputation of, hey, if you use Cobb stuff, you're going to fail inspection, your car's going to be deemed illegal, or whatever buzzword or scary sounding thing you can think of. At the end of the day, the person pulling the trigger, the person keeping this in business, the person buying the product is the consumer. So number one, consumers need to be better educated. But number two, it's one of those things that, hey, Cobb, does it suck? Yes. Is this a massive blow to them as a company? Absolutely. Would it suck to see Cobb go away? All yes to those ends, right? But if you, and I'm not saying this is what Cobb did or didn't do. It's not what tuners do. Let's just use the diesel emissions defeat shops that are willfully and knowingly doing this. With diesels, size your turbo appropriately because that eliminates a lot of rolling coal.
True.
Number one. And then there's the tuning side of it. And what have you. But it's, if someone's going to come out and do something better, or a company's going to get lazy and start doing things worse, eventually the consumer base will dictate them out of the industry. Right? So there's no reason for the EPA to overreach. Like, I don't know what it is. And I don't know where EPA sits within the hierarchy of alphabet agencies, right? You know, you have, I'll use the ATF as an example. They are an enforcement. It is not their job to write the laws. It is their job to enforce the law. Or not, and as it's been interpreted by a judge. I see the EPA getting to a point where they're now going to be going after all of this stuff in a sense that, oh, well, PR-wise, a lot of the people who don't give a shit about cars, which admittedly is quite large, the vast majority, just like the vast majority of people could give a shit about, firearms. And where this gets dangerous is that this is the first blow. Well, it's not the first, but it's the first one that happened to a major tuning company, right? Is that the future? Do they get bolder? Do they start sitting here? Now all of a sudden it's like, if you're a tuner and a good tuner, are you now on the EPA's hit list? If you are someone like Lund Racing, who does a really good job with tuning Coyotes and Ford's Mustangs in general. Are they on the hit list? Are the people doing things the right way going to be targeted because it's part of this crusade of this? And lastly, and I'll close it with this, targeting this sort of stuff, whether it's right or wrong, whether it's diesel defeat devices or Cobb doing emissions defeat or anyone doing emissions defeat systems, is that overall where our time, money, and effort should be going? Is there a better way? Let's face it, right? We can be as clean as we want to be. Guess who isn't? Russia, China, a lot of that side of the world. Korea and Japan notwithstanding. South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
How do you fix that? I have no idea. Again, more than likely what will happen is consumerism will dictate. There's a better solution to cleaning up the air than it is just sitting here and targeting. Because guess what? There's not a lot of us. If you were to sit here and take all of us out, hypothetically speaking, the overall impact on the environment would be minuscule, almost almost not noticeable, right? And again, these OEMs, they're coming out with cleaner, more efficient, more engines all of the time. Chrysler's standpoint meant get rid of a V8. But that's why you see stuff like, and again, I'm going to sound like a homer for a second here, and then we're going to get back to regularly scheduled Greg programming, which I believe tonight is watching his beard grow.
Yes.
You know, it's just, I don't like where this is headed. I don't like now that you have, and I said this months ago, and how if you look at, and again, I don't care where you stand on firearms, but if you look at what the ATF had tried to do over the last 2 years, again, an agency that's supposed to enforce, not write law, I said that they were going to be coming for the cars next, or they were going to embolden agencies like the EPA to do what the EPA is doing. And again, come after us, you're going to notice there's not really much. You're not really going to make much of a difference. Your time and energy could be spent elsewhere. Your time and energy, the money they're spending on trying to clean up all this shit, could go into government grants for, say, solid-state battery technology or synthetic fuels or other stuff that will make a much larger impact on the environment than coming after Cobb for making Subarus more likely to blow a head gasket. And maybe that's what they did. Maybe they blew a head gasket and they're like, you know what, this company needs to pay. I would be more on board with that than this environmental BS.
Yeah. No, I agree with you to a certain extent. I mean, it's definitely a lot of puffery as opposed to just actual caring. In certain ways, it's a lot of just posturing and
justifying a paycheck or justifying tax dollars.
Yeah, I think a lot of government is just justifying tax dollars basically, but this one specifically reeks of that. But anyway, like I think it's I'll go more in the short form that I make tomorrow on it. It's $2.9 million. Cobb said they're going to pay. They're going to adjust their stuff, and there's a whole laundry list on most of the articles out there about it of like what they need to comply with, and it's like they need to change like marketing, they need to change this, that, the other thing, and like Cobb will do it. Cobb's not a company that's about to go bankrupt, so they have the funds to do so. But it is I'm waiting for the day, and this is speculation, so please don't quote me on this nor hold me to it. I'm waiting for the day where the EPA goes to the actual OEMs and it's just like, you're not compliant with the EPA. And the OEMs are just going to be like, yeah, but free market. So shut up. And the EPA is going to be like, yeah, but you have to comply.
I
And
mean, look
then
at
the
it's
OEMs
gonna
are going to be like, well, then we're going to pull out all new cars from the United States, and the EPA is going to be like, oh, fuck, we shouldn't have done that. And then they're going to realize that like they overstepped their bounds. Like it probably isn't going to happen, but I'm just like, I'm waiting for that day to just be like, oh, for the EPA to just be like, oh man, we fucked up. Because I bet you that day will come eventually, and it's going to be a really funny day when every manufacturer is just like,
well,
no, we're not going to sell cars in the
the
U.S.
biggest
anymore.
the biggest problem with all of this too is the pendulum, and I don't know, maybe this might be a good place to call it.
Yeah.
Is the over how do I put this without making it sound like a dick joke?
Make it sound like a dick joke.
The the drastic swings of the pendulum that we have politically in this country, right? And what I mean by that is I'm just going to use my adult or near adult life. Adult. Age. There we go. Technically, at my age, I should be an adult. There we go. And that is, if you look at political climate, you have, you know, it was. We'll just start with Clinton, left, not as far left as a lot of people think. He's very,
Center left.
very. He was more fiscally conservative than a lot of people give him credit for.
Yeah.
Then you had Bush, who swung a little bit further to the right, and then it swung, and then it swung, and then it swung, and now the swings are so big that half of a person's president's, like half of Biden's fucking presidency was undoing things he didn't like that Trump did.
Well, yeah, it was the same thing for Trump, undoing the same things that he didn't like for Obama.
Right. And that's going to happen.
That's not productive.
Again. That's going to happen again. Whatever happens this November.
It's going to happen again.
It's going to happen again. And if half of your time is spent on doing what others are doing, guess what you're not serving? The people. Or you're not spending your time on actual issues. You're basically now all of a sudden emissions, right? Like the whole thing was electric cars. Look how well that turned out. The market dictated that basically 1 in 5, 1 in 6 cars will be electric, and that's kind of the appetite of the consumer at this particular point in history.
Yeah.
I mean, never mind the fact that the presidency, we've created the most powerful position in our government, and it's a job the smart people don't want.
Yep.
And that's but it comes back. These alphabet agencies just want to enforce. They want to justify themselves instead of, again, what's the EPA science division up to? Have they even looked into synthetic fuels, or have they basically said, nope, electric's the future?
Do they have a science division is my question.
Exactly my point. And that is more what they should be doing.
Right.
And educating, in addition to enforcement, because there's, like, obviously we can't be dumping toxic sludge into the local waterways, right? Like, we can't be doing that, right? We can't just have, people poisoning the space. Like, I get that. I don't want to hear about it with cars. Live in a world without cars. See how well your life is. I rest. But let's do research. Let's educate. Instead of cars, internal combustion, bad. How do we improve internal combustion? Thermal efficiency. How much bang can we get out of a drop of fuel? Because if you make it bigger, guess what? It burns cleaner. What fuels are we looking at? I guarantee you, if as much effort and as much government money was put into synthetic fuels as was the electric car development, think synthetic fuel version of Tesla, right? Where would we be with that? And how much better? Because again, infrastructure. We've sung its praises ad nauseum. That's what we should be paying attention to. Not going after, like, again, I draw the line at smoke coming out of your tailpipe. If there's smoke coming out of your tailpipe because of an emissions defeat, that's where I draw the line visually. But at any rate, Anthony goes, it's just getting worse, and let's just say that it's sad that these are the only two options, but best they have. Doug goes, if only the Constitution were written away to limit federal government. Imagine that. Or the necessity of a well-armed militia. Just saying. That would have been nice. Oh, we have that? We just ignore it. So long as we don't follow the Constitution, none of it matters. And I haven't even been drinking tonight. I mean, that's... if you want to know where I stand, I'm a constitutionalist. Let's move on. And then Anthony, they have people shoving money under the table to push certain things along. That's the way it works, especially at the top. Look, I get it. You have lobbyists, you have special interest groups, and all that. But no, and I'll end it here. Just here's the beautiful thing about a free market. Well, mostly free market, which is a good thing. Left unchecked. At any rate, it will dictate things in this and things out. If someone comes along, and I'm just going to use Cobb as an example because of they're who we're talking about. I'm not saying this is actually how they are operating. I want that to be very clear. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, Cobb got lazy, was like, oh, we can just tune it this way. The power is going to be there, but the emissions aren't going to be as great. Let's just tune that code out of the system, right? They got slapped on the wrist for it. Or they got caught. They got the ruler to the wrist. But Mate Tuning Company comes along and says, we'll give you this. We'll give you the same horsepower. We'll do it, and we won't. It'll be clean, and it's not going to cost you any more. People will be like, "Ooh, I heard this about Cobb," and start to transition, unless Cobb gets their shit together fast enough. And again, I'm not saying Cobb is doing this. I'm just using them as an example. That's the beautiful thing about it. And I'd just like to thank every one of you for coming to our TED Talk.
Yes, very much yes.
But as for tonight's show, that's going to be a wrap, guys. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching, liking, sharing, doing all of the things that you are contractually obligated by Facebook, YouTube, and so on to do.
Yes.
If you don't, the EPA will come looking at your cars.
And confiscate them from you.
And then only Anthony will be in good standing because he's the only one to bite the EV bullet. But
that's right.
but thanks again for everyone for watching. We will be back next week. I am hopefully going to be working on a guest list as we move into October. But Greg, thank you for finally coming back. Thank you to Greg's job. And
yay, my job.
But
thank you for everyone watching. Appreciate it. And good lists. We're gonna do more of these blind lists. These are really fun. We could do a couple of these a month. I think it'd be a good time.
Yep. Thanks again, and we will absolutely